have to turn some camera. I have to do some light.
Yeah, we're used
okay,
to
gotcha. Okay, cool. All right, it's Joel from Reset Media. This is another live feed. We're also going to do a direct edit on this video, and these young ladies came from Canada to visit us, and they had firsthand experience on the ground in Canada during the Ottawa protests, and they have a lot to tell us about their experiences, and furthermore, they can probably give us some advice on, you know, what we could expect and how we should handle things on our end. So there you go. That's there he goes. Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone.
We're gonna go inside. Okay. So I'll just walk you guys inside. But I thought I'd start the live feed anyway. People will start flooding in and. Okie dokie. The ladies are here.
Get out of your way.
Shoot, I gotta try. Tony's the one who's having us stay here.
Hi, nice to meet you. Should I take my
Mike?
shirt off?
Yeah. Tony's behind you. I'm Mike.
Okay, hi Tony.
Another Mike.
Nice
Everybody's named Mike.
There's lots of
Mike.
It is Mike.
Hi.
Hi.
I go in for hugs.
Okay, perfect.
Jody and Monique.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you. This is awesome.
I feel like we're in Finding Nemo, right? Mike. Mike.
Yeah, there you go.
My name's Sherry.
Hi, Sherry. I'm sorry.
I'm one of the co-founders of Take Action Canada.
Okay, sweet.
So I brought these girls down. We couldn't get enough of the Ottawa Convoy, so we decided to
Perfect.
We want another one.
Yeah.
See what y'all are doing down here.
when we saw them, that was like, we watched in a hotel room. We were just like,
Yeah.
Well, and when we heard that we had lost the Windsor border on the Canadian side, and then all of a sudden we heard, but don't worry, the Americans have it on the American side, so we didn't lose the border, we still have it.
Yeah.
We're just not holding it on our side.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like, everybody's working together,
Yeah.
right? We're uniting North America.
Yeah.
We've united in Canada, we've united the English and the French, the East Coast with the West Coast, and now the Americans with the Canadians. Like, it's pretty phenomenal.
Well, and actually, through that, Australia and New Zealand too has been connected with us.
Oh yes, even
So
hello,
it's all
how are
it's
you?
worldwide at this point.
I'm good.
This is Rebecca.
Yes. What's your name?
Rebecca.
Nice to
Well, now wait a minute. I didn't get a Canadian hug.
A
group hug.
We're all huggers.
We're hugging across.
We are huggers.
Hi, Jody.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
This dress is beautiful. This is better than the shawl.
Oh, well, I wanted to look nice for you.
There you go. Awesome.
When you guys make yourself at home.
Sure, this is like the nicest trailer I've ever seen. Like it's a gas stove.
Pretty spoiled in here.
You are. You're writing in style.
Where would you like us to sit, Joel?
Right here is perfect. You can move these covers.
Oh, look at this. This is awesome.
Come on through.
Okay.
Our in-home studio.
so I'm not in the interview, so where would
Okay. Well,
Our trailer. Make yourself home. /bed.
I am. There we go.
Yeah, Joel, I'd love to send you a video of basically, so someone took all my interviews and footage from Ottawa and made like a professional kind of type video, and it really kind of sums up the joy, the unity in Ottawa, and then kind of the end
Oh yeah.
of it. Yeah.
I could
so
cut that in. It'd be great.
absolutely, I think it would be really nice and
Let's see now.
right, like
Should we have a could help with sound in session? That's it.
so
Yeah, that would be great. I could definitely work with that and add it to what we're doing here.
Hey everyone.
Oh, people are flooding in.
Yeah.
They come. Oh, great. This is
You had a
finally.
mate. Look at you got a fireplace here. Look at
That's
this.
it.
it's wild.
Who needs property tax?
This is what we need, guys. This is what we need to
This is
do.
why we're staying.
Right.
We're like, okay, well, let's keep going.
This is what we need to take to Texas with us.
All right, let's sell everything and do
Wow.
this
I
and
know.
buy a big one. And how many bedrooms is
I
it?
could put you here, Rebecca.
Want me to hang that over
I'll just stay behind the cameras. Yeah,
Oh, because he's going to sit there.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay,
You guys
girls,
are all so
also,
pretty.
good
We'll just
today.
stick with that.
So basically,
And so-
Joel is with Reset Media. He's
Reset Media.
interviewing us and just give his viewers here in the States an idea of what happened in Ottawa, what we kind of went through the whole experience, and maybe give them some pointers as what they can do here. So, yeah.
Helping and learning from each other.
Yeah.
And we want to connect. We want to make this a North American venture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And okay, Mike,
Yes.
maybe you can tell her a little bit about your friend from Australia.
Oh, and Australia. So this is, my thing.
So I was doing some live streams from here, and I don't know how it happened. Because, I don't have a whole bunch of Facebook friends. I got like 560, right? So I'm doing a live stream from here, and I get a contact message from somebody from Australia. And his name is Scott Russell. And well, Scott just so happens to be the lead organizer to the, to what's going on in Australia right now. And so we've been in contact back and forth, and we helped bring Scott together with Brian. So they've been kind of talking to each other.
I would love to get that.
So would I.
Contact. That's where my kids are, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would love to know and be, up to date on what's going on.
Well,
there.
we're
my kids don't like to look at it really, so
Yeah. We're actually going to do a call with Scott here in a little while tonight. We haven't established the time yet, but we sent messages back and forth to one another, and so at some point tonight, we're going to do a phone call with him.
Okay.
So
I would like to put him in touch with some of the heads of the Canadian convoys. So I've got their
Absolutely.
names because we want to work together.
Right.
Yeah,
We need to.
absolutely.
Yes.
All
Support each
all
other.
of the countries need to stand up as one.
Yes.
We are one.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
we are uniting. Like what has happened is basically, a flame has been ignited, and we didn't realize how many of us there were. That's what's happened.
Yeah.
Is it was exposed, and now we realize that there are so many, not just within our own countries, but across the world. So it gave us so much hope. And when the world watched, I'm sure you guys watching us, you were like, oh my gosh, right? Like, Canada's doing this. We got to do this. And Australia saw it. Australia's like, we got to do this, right? And it just spread like a wildfire.
Yeah.
It ignited unity and love.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the Canadians haven't given up. There's a bikers convoy going to Ottawa this weekend. There's convoys, reunification convoys. There's music convoys.
We've got the veterans.
It's just going to keep putting pressure on, and it allows that bridge for people that are sitting on the fence that maybe haven't been active, haven't made their voice be heard, join in positive things that aren't as in their mind so radical as maybe the convoy in Ottawa, which wasn't radical. It was all about love and unity.
No, absolutely.
It was, but people were a little nervous about that were sitting on the fence, right? But when we have these concerts and these social events, family events, it's going to bring people together.
Yeah.
And that's what we need, right? We need to bring them over.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And show them what we're really about and who we are. That
Don't
we
let
are.
your
That
on
happens.
fire.
That happens all the time. Not with me. That's the first time with me, but it's happened with everybody here.
Yeah, the fire has been
These
lit
kind of
within us.
Absolutely. I mean, you should see our team.
everywhere.
Our team. We're a diverse team. The five of us. I mean, we come from all these different backgrounds. It's so cool. But yeah.
Oh, the diversity was the most beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah.
That,
That's just getting the
Okay.
sound.
Yeah,
all
getting
Well,
synced
three
up.
of us, Jody and I, were born both in Coburg. I'm a retired real estate agent. She's a broker, a real estate agent, and
I'm a real
and she's a real estate agent.
Yeah.
So the three of
And
us
we
have
never
all
met.
come
We
We
together
never met. We
through
didn't know
this.
each other.
Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Same
all
here.
real estate agents?
Well, no, we're not. I mean, we could. I guess we could be, but no, we didn't know each other before this,
Yeah.
and we feel like we've been brought together from a higher power, from God or whatever you choose to
The
believe.
universe
Bonded.
brought us together.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to bond. We all sleep in the same bed.
The show just
You
got
guys are
underway.
bonded. They're a little
It's super
more bonded
bonded.
than me. Oh, boy.
Some of us snore, and we
Well, maybe you
others have
should
to
tell
tell.
about the Swiss Hotel and the sleeping arrangements there,
Oh
Jody.
my gosh, the Barefoot Hostel, yes.
Oh, I
yes.
slept there one night.
You saw
Fireman on one side and police officer on the other.
Oh yeah. My my one night. That's how gentlemen Canadians are. They offered. I got locked out. The lady who owns the Swiss hotel, she locked the kitchen up, not realizing my keys and everything were in the kitchen, so I couldn't leave. And she'd gone to bed, so she wasn't answering the phone. So I got stuck in the Swiss hotel, and one of the firemen says to me, it's now 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, whatever it was, and he's like, you need to go to bed because you need to be in the kitchen cooking tomorrow. And so I'm like, I can't leave because Sabina's got my keys. And they're locked in the kitchen. So he's like, okay, I tell you what, you come to my room, I'll sleep on the floor, you can sleep in the bed beside Roberto, and it'll all be fine because he's already asleep. So when Roberto woke up in the morning, so I had Martin on the floor beside me, I had Roberto in the bed beside me. Roberto rolls over in the morning, looks, and he's like, oh, if I'd known you were going to be here, my sleeping partner.
That is a total dream come true.
Let me tell you a story. I woke up with a woman right next to me.
No one's ever going to bring it. There's no alcohol. I don't know how it happened.
All right. Well, it's really a pleasure to have you guys here. And this morning on the stage, I was actually like going and walking away, and I started to listen to some of the things you were saying about what happened in Canada, and that inside knowledge is so pertinent for us here in the States, because obviously there was kind of a media blackout for everyone. And some of the things you described to me, I'm sure you guys have reiterated this stuff before, but if you could just do like a general overview of sort of what transpired on a timeline, and that would be amazing. Yeah.
Sure. So how it all started was one trucker did a TikTok that was released, well, across everywhere, and his TikTok went viral saying, that's it, we need to have a convoy to Ottawa, I'm calling all truckers, let's do this convoy. And that message went viral, and all of a sudden everybody got it in their head they were going to do this convoy. And Canada Unity got involved, Freedom Convoy 2022 got involved, Take Action Canada got involved, Adopt a Trucker got involved, and a bunch of these other freedom organizations got involved. And they said, yes, let's bring the truckers. January 23rd, let's start the convoy from BC and the East Coast and bring it to Ottawa. So different groups got in contact. They had province-wide captains, and you got in contact with the captains, and they put together a convoy route for all the trucks and what we called four-wheelers, which is just normal everyday vehicles.
And we also had, so while the people were coming from across Canada, there were also overpasses and people along the highways that were wanting to meet them. So another thing we did was organize the overpasses in Toronto and the Vaughan area. So one of the things that I did was, scout out all the overpasses and got people to basically come and cover them. We had people along the highways and schedules and everything. So, when I had to coordinate with a beautiful soul, Dave, who was the lead trucker or organizer for the Toronto convoy. So it just kind of started to spread, right? All over in different ways.
Everybody just got involved, and everybody wanted to be part of it. Even if you couldn't be in the convoy line, then you lined up on overpasses and streets, and it was really magical. I was leading the Hamilton convoy. I was asked to come and live stream the Hamilton convoy, so I did that. And to go through this tunnel of people lining the streets and dancing and music, and they're all screaming and cheering, and the truckers are here to save us. It was really something. We were in tears driving down the 401. Like it was phenomenal, and everybody all of a sudden realized, we're not alone. I'm not the only one that feels like this. It united so many, like neighbors who before weren't talking to each other and were pitted against each other, all of a sudden had this commonality that they had no idea. And you started seeing communities come together instead of fighting each other. And then that carried on all the way into Ottawa.
So it was more than just that they were protesting sort of mandates and things like that. It was changing the whole culture around what was happening.
Well, everyone in Canada has been so affected by this in so many ways. So what many, and I don't know how exactly we compare to you guys in terms, I know we're more similar to California and New York, but that people were forced to take this vax in order to keep their jobs. Our children were masked every day in school all across Canada. So
to go to post-secondary, they had to get a vaccine, or they
Uh,
couldn't go to post-secondary, even when their
university-
classes were online.
Yes.
So they weren't even in the classroom,
and they had to get it.
and they had to get
They
it.
were being de-enrolled from programs. They had been, 5 years, let's say a 5-year program. Their last year, boom, everything was stripped from them because they wouldn't take it. Our suicide has quadrupled. Children as young. I've interviewed many nurses. One who was worked in the pediatric department of a hospital in Barrie, Ontario. She said she had kids as young as 7 years old trying to cut themselves, kill themselves. And she had never in her entire time seen one child with COVID. She saw irreversible eating disorders. She saw mental health issues. So this was affecting Canadians across the globe. We had been in isolation for months at a time, right? In winter, it's hard. It was very hard on so many of us. So when this movement started, so many people who had been affected wanted to get behind this and get behind the truckers. We were like, yes, we will support them. And we started to see how big it was becoming. Everybody,
GoFundMes.
people were driving their children, putting them in their cars and driving across Canada 20 hours, 30
Just to
hours,
come and
just to
see.
come to support the truckers in
Because
Ottawa.
the policy was affecting the population at such
Everybody,
an
not
intense
just
level.
them, not just them. Every job sector, police officers, paramedics, teachers, nurses, you name it.
Everybody.
Federal
Servers.
workers, everyone was being
Service,
affected by
retail,
this. Yes.
everybody was
Wow.
affected.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we realized the magnitude that this had when they started the GoFundMes to raise money to keep the truckers in Ottawa. One GoFundMe ended up around the 16 million mark, and then the government shut it down.
Right.
And then they started another one, and that within days was up over the 10 million mark.
Yeah.
And then we also had Give, Send, Go that also got up over, I think it was in the millions as well. And the government came in and squashed all of those.
took all
but
of
then people started driving to Ottawa with
my
cash and prepaid
Yeah.
credit cards. Even though they had already donated on these other sites, they drove to Ottawa
Yeah.
to make sure.
And many people so then we decided, okay, let's try and do something else. Like, let's try and get our own donations. And we're in Ottawa, we'll give it to the truckers. So one of the things that we did in my hotel room was we would basically do their laundry. We found an Airbnb to do laundry. We would have the truckers in and out, of people sleeping in their cars to have showers. But then we were also purchasing hotel rooms for the night. And I heard you guys actually say this about earlier on the stage, which was kind of like, oh, they're doing it. But then they were starting to freeze personal bank accounts. A good friend of ours, Sean Zimmer, his bank account was frozen, and it was, I don't even know if it's still back up. The last time I spoke to him,
It was
still frozen. So they were
Some
really,
people have their bank accounts still frozen?
Yes,
yes,
still.
yeah, oh yeah.
And anybody who had given donations to Give, Send, Go had bank accounts frozen. So single mom with 3 kids donated $20, had her bank
She had her
account
bank account.
frozen.
Like, not everyone, but there's lots of stories of it. And yeah, we could go on about
How did that affect the people? Did that strike fear into the population, or did that more or less?
No.
She said, well,
Some people, I'm sure, were definitely afraid. So they were trying to do more things underground. So now instead of donating money, they were coming down with cash, or they were bringing boxes of food, or boxes of clothing, or propane tanks.
we
and
would just
diesel
find
and that sort
another
of stuff
way.
instead.
We would find another way.
Yeah.
And that was like, whatever they tried to put against us or stop us with, we would find another way.
The jerry can.
And everybody, this was a community. You have to understand, there was like a million people in Ottawa once we got there, right? Oh yeah, then
But
they
the
wanted
jerry
to stop
can,
the fuel from coming in, so
they-
they arrested a guy bringing in fuel to Ottawa, right? And then
And within hours, there was over 100 people that walked up to the hill, all with jerry cans
Jerry
full
can.
of fuel.
Yeah.
They're
Wow.
like, "You're gonna arrest one, you're
You're
gonna arrest us all."
yeah.
Yeah.
And then that was the end of that. And same with food. They were stopping people from bringing wagons of food up onto the hill and saying, no, you can't feed the truckers. So they were trying to starve them out and freeze them out. And we just found other ways. We started stuffing food in our clothes. And,
but
and,
the food, the amount of food in Ottawa, we actually had to listen to this. The homeless that were out in the outskirts of the city were buying bus tickets to come into Ottawa to be fed, because we had tents set up everywhere. Chefs were coming and cooking. There was this one woman, her name was Mama. She drove up with, that's what, I don't know her real name.
That's what we called her.
She actually had stayed in a room, because I asked the trucker, I kept asking them, who wants a room for the night? We had this extra room, and they said, no, give it to her. She wasn't a trucker, but she was a woman who drove up with the convoy, set up a tent, had big pots and a kitchen, and cooked every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the truckers. Like, we had an influx of supplies. Like, we didn't even know what to do. Like,
we had food rotting. We had to throw food out because there was so much food. Nobody went hungry. The crime rate actually went down. And the police confirmed that the crime rate went down. The streets were the cleanest they've ever been. When it snowed, people were shoveling snow.
We had garbage bags. It was the most beautiful protest you'd ever seen in your life.
The cleanest protest.
The cleanest, the friendliest. People were setting up garbage bags along the fences. There was not one.
And on every truck had a garbage
ground.
bag tied to every truck as well.
Yeah.
So there was
the atmosphere was very like cooperative and full of.
This is our home, and we're gonna be proud of it and take care of it. And we're gonna, and you're my sister, and you're my brother, and we're gonna hug each other, look out for each other. It was beautiful, and you know, in Canada we've got a big divide between the English and the French. There was no divide. All of a sudden, the English and the French came together, and they were working together, and they were hugging, and they were dancing, and they were singing and feeding and sheltering together.
Brought us together.
It was incredible. And even the East Coast to the West Coast, there's also a divide there, and it just we meshed, and we remembered that we were Canadians again. Like, and human. Yeah. We were all human. We may look different. We may speak a different language. We may live in different provinces. But we're all one. We're all human.
Yeah, we had like a Sikh community, the indigenous community, like beautiful people I met from Jamaica. It was so diverse. Yeah. For Justin Trudeau to have said that we were racist, extremist, misogynist was so hurtful. It was so hurtful because it basically provoked hate among people who didn't see what was really going on, and that's nothing that, it was so hurtful and we were like, come down and see for yourselves, trying to be like, everybody come down. And the police would say, like, we have great videos of the police. They were awesome until
they were high-fiving us.
Oh, I have videos, if you look on my thing, of me interviewing them and saying, have you seen one act of violence or racism? No.
Where can people see that video?
So that's on my Instagram, independent_journalism_, and I caught them on 3 separate weekends, and they all confirmed, not from what I've seen. And we had one conversation with an officer who basically said tourists were coming in to have a look and then staying because they were like, wow, like they were kind of fearful of because of what the news was saying. They were saying that, don't go down there. It's violent. It's scary. They said that there was vandalism to the Terry Fox statue. They just put a Canadian flag around Terry Fox.
Okay. Okay.
They said that the war monument was desecrated, and I also have a video of the veterans, which you can also find on that I interviewed a lot of them there. So what they did, there's a war monument of the fallen soldiers, and basically someone had gotten up on it. This was during the weekends were always busier than the week, and someone had gotten up on it and yelled freedom and did a little dance, and then the police came in several days later and put a chain fence around the entire monument. But these veterans were coming in from across Canada, and this belongs to them, right? This belongs to them. They all said that the only desecration, because that's what mainstream media said, that we desecrated the war monument, the only desecration was the police putting the fence up. So the veterans came, all of them got their shovels, and they all removed the fence.
They took the fence down, and then they shoveled it,
30
and then
police
they guarded it themselves.
30 police came at that moment. They had heard the veterans took the fence down. So I was there. This was to me, the most powerful moment of me being in Ottawa. So I just happened to be there. God always, I guess, puts me in the places, you know, I need to be, but it was such a beautiful moment. And I saw all these police marching over, so I walk over, and the veterans start saying to the police, no, like, you're not gonna, you know, we don't want the fence up. They're like, join us. And so everybody started cheering, join us, like, to the police.
Wow.
And then the veteran goes, everybody on your knees. So we all got on our knees. Like, there was hundreds of us there. We all got on our knees to the police. And, you know, we were like, please just join us, like, join us. And they all just walked away. They moved away. And at that moment one police officer went to the veteran and the veteran said, you're not putting the fence back up. And he's like, well, are you going to look after it? And he said, we will guard this every single day we're here. And they actually patrolled it 24 hours.
Wow.
They did. So they did shifts.
You guys said a little bit about the media, and specifically the one thing that was being sourced and thrown out to all the conglomerates was the whole Nazi flag thing. Can you talk a little bit about what that was all about?
Yeah, so in the newspapers and on the news and whatnot, all you saw was this picture of this one gentleman with the Nazi flag. But one gentleman
out of like 2 million.
Exactly. But we always knew when something was going to be set up for media purposes, because you would see the media, you know, CTV News, CP24, CBC, doesn't matter, but they would come in all dressed in black. But you knew who they were, because there was always anywhere from 3 to 6 of them, and they'd have their thousands of dollars equipment with them. Well, those of us who are down there, independent journalists, do not have equipment that's worth, you know, 50, 60. And some of them had masks, some of them did. The one Chinese lady always had a mask on her face. So you're like, okay, we know who you are. But they would come in and they would set up. And usually within 15, 20 minutes of them setting up and being ready to film, we would see something happen. So it's like, okay, this is another setup. And the gentleman with the swastika flag came in, and sure enough, those were the pictures and the videos that hit mainstream media everywhere.
That was the main. So the 3 main things were, actually there's 4. This is how they turned people against us. The desecration of the war monument, the Terry Fox vandalism. And they also claimed that 2 protesters from the convoy went into a homeless shelter and stole food from the homeless shelter. Meanwhile, like Jody and I said, and like we have videos of even the homeless being like, there's a gorgeous video actually of the homeless, and there's a table set up. There's 2 coming in, and there's food and clothing, and the gentleman says, take whatever you want, and the man's like, really? He's like, can I take more? And he's like, whatever you want. And they're like, more? And they're like, they're just like they couldn't believe it. And they're like, fill more bags. Like, take whatever you want. And their faces were just like, you know, they're like, you guys are going to stay, right? You guys aren't leaving Ottawa.
Yeah. They were well taken care of and sheltered.
Yeah.
You know, nobody slept out on the street. People were inviting them into their cars, into their trucks, into their tents that were set up. And there were all kinds of tents set up with like little chimeneas or little fires. And everybody was invited in. Literally nobody froze. Nobody went hungry. Everybody was sheltered from the elements. And we were in minus 30 degrees Celsius weather, minus 40 degrees Celsius weather. And it didn't matter what street corner you went on, there was music being played, and we had stage that was running from 10 a.m. till 8 p.m. at night most nights. And there were educators, there was doctors, there was people telling their stories, there were musicians. We had hockey nets set up, we had bouncy castles set up, we had giant Jengas and Connect Four set up.
People are building snowmen.
People are building
We had a hot tub brought in.
and saunas.
Portable hot tubs brought into Parliament on the main street. You should have seen it.
Wow.
It was incredible. Just
climbing things. We had cotton candy machines for the kids. The joy in the children was the best part.
It was to see children of all ages, you know, 2-year-olds with 17-year-olds playing hockey and having fun, and bouncy castles, and then dancing, you know, the young with the old. dancing.
Yeah.
I have so many videos because a lot of times I either emceed the stage or I was a speaker on the stage. So I have a lot of video footage from the stage. And to see these little kids that have been isolated in their homes and not seeing people without masks on, all of a sudden they're in crowds of millions of people and they're smiling and they're dancing and they're laughing, and they haven't done this in 2 years. It was
I have some great videos of the kids speaking that
they're the ones that suffered the most through all of this. So to see them experiencing this joy, and to see them looking at all these faces for the first time, like a 2-year-old has never seen a face without a mask.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they're seeing millions of people without masks. It was just, and hugging. Everybody's hugging each other. Everybody.
How many hugs? Like,
Oh
honestly,
my God,
I think,
all day
and like
long.
good hugs, like
Yeah.
you know,
like meaningful hugs.
yeah.
You felt the love, the energy being passed. A couple of truckers had on their trucks free hugs. Just knock on the door, and literally they would climb out of their truck to hug you.
Yeah, and people like these grown men in their trucks crying, and mothers, and like I made a couple of them cry many times, being like, thank you so
for
much.
being here.
And their trucks were covered, like children would write cards saying thank you, trucker. So you'd walk down and hundreds of trucks covered in children's drawings or cards saying thank you, we love you. Like,
and then we had superstar trucks. We called them the superstar trucks because everybody wanted to see the Live from the Shed truck, or the F. Trudeau truck, or the 6 trucks right by the stage.
Yeah.
And they would go nuts with their horns every hour on the hour. They would put on a show for about 5 minutes with their horns and get the trucks bouncing.
Yeah.
And people would literally videotape this to music, and it was...
yeah, one suggestion, one gentleman, so this is what Jody's talking about, Live from the Shed.
Yeah.
They built a shed and then like a ladder up and like a rooftop out of wood
On top of their
while
truck.
they're for media, so for independent media. So I got to go up quite a bit, and then you can get a real good scope of like the amount of people that were there, right? From being on top. Yeah.
And also when Ottawa took away our porta potties, they actually we had porta potties. The police took away our porta potties, and then we managed to get 6 more back on, and that was a big production. We had Jason McDonald, who was running the stage. He strapped a porta potty around his waist and come running up like a horse, carrying the porta potty on his back. It was the funniest moment. And then a few days later, Ottawa wouldn't let us empty the porta potties, so now we had a disaster happening on the street. And then they came and they took them away and wouldn't let us have them back. So the guys from Live from the Shed built wooden porta potties behind the truck, and they had buckets, and you would go into your porta potty, you would go to the bathroom, and then you take your bucket and dump it. It was the funniest thing. And they had them, this is for men, this is for women, this is for Trudeau's shitter, and this is, and it was we had a lot of fun, and there was so much love and unity.
You think the government, when experiencing this and wanting the best for its people, would have embraced it, but instead the opposite happened, where they had an equal and opposite reaction to what you were spreading, all the joy and love you were spreading.
And listen to what we're explaining, because all the truckers wanted was a conversation. They just wanted a conversation. They were like a lot of the organizers, like Jody was saying, they were in negotiation with the Ottawa police, and so they were very respectful. And when asked to move, the first week, apparently the honking was very upsetting
to some residents.
To some residents, it was causing major anxiety. They couldn't sleep at night, So it was, and if Parliament, there's no
houses
residents.
in that area.
Yeah, there's no
nothing.
Gotcha. They're further down. So it's not like the honking went on all night. I know. I stayed right in Parliament the first weekend, the major weekend, and by 1 a.m. the honking had subsided. But so they worked with police and they put a no honk order, and there was no honking, and they were like,
After 8 o'clock at night,
How many people again? All following?
millions.
And they all did the thing that was best for everybody.
everyone agreed. Nobody, you never heard a honk after that.
Yeah, it
So-
was like 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. I
Yeah.
think were the hours you could honk.
Yeah.
And it was typically every hour on the hour you could honk for 2 to 5 minutes, and everybody would do that, and then it would stop. And then they said no honking at all, or we're going to arrest. And they did arrest an elderly gentleman, horribly arrested him. So we stopped the honking, and what we did was we had a soundtrack of geese honking. So every hour on the hour, we would play the soundtrack of geese, and we'd all stand there and do this as the soundtrack of geese honking. so we still got our honks that we just So we had to do stuff like that.
Yeah, we'd find a way, but we also wanted to. We weren't there to be disruptive.
Right.
We weren't there to take over. We weren't there to occupy.
It was a
We were
conversation
there
wanted.
to. We wanted we wanted our lives back. We want our lives back.
And you're just simply asking for a conversation with
We want
government.
and we want the mandates dropped. We want this nightmare to be over, once and for all. And we want accountability now as well, because this is
We want
something-
criminal charges brought against those who violated
Yeah.
our laws, violated
Our
people.
rights.
So many people died through the last 2 years. They deserve to have justice brought to their names. They just do. And the crazy thing is we're on Parliament. Parliament was open in session. The MPs had to walk through our crowds to get inside, and then once inside, they were saying violence was going on and this, that, and the next thing. I'm like, you just walked through us. Are you kidding me right now?
I want to see the evidence. Why Canadians deserve to see the evidence. If this is the accusation or allegations that they are making, why aren't they showing the Canadian people or anybody evidence of this so-called violence? Why aren't they showing the violence that was committed against us?
That's right.
Because that was the only act of violence that occurred.
Maybe you can talk about how when it started to turn and what happened there.
So basically, it was the Friday. It was the third weekend.
Well, the Emergency Measures Act was brought in.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 3
Justin
good
Trudeau-
weekends, and then before the 4th weekend could happen,
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau brought in the Emergency Measures Act on the Monday night.
I
Tuesday it was enacted. So we figured Wednesday, Thursday they were going to take action, because through the week there wasn't a lot of people there because people work and they go back to their lives. But every weekend it got
Floods.
bigger and bigger, because people were watching the news where it said all these horrible things were happening,
So they wanna
but their
see-
friends were coming home saying that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So they were coming back with their friends, and then they'd go back, and the next weekend those friends would bring more friends.
Yeah.
So it was getting bigger and bigger. So
And
Trudeau had to stop it.
I will say something
Gotcha.
that people also need to question. I'm sure many of you heard the language of us being a small fringe group, a minority. Why would you invoke an Emergency Measures Act for such a small minority? Like, if we were not a threat and it was just, a small group, so that's why they had to, grasp at all this different stuff to make, in order to justify what they were doing, because it was not justified.
No, but when nothing happened the Tuesday or Wednesday, and then the Thursday came, we're like, we made it through, because Fridays, that's when everybody would come up. But what they did was on the Friday is they shut down the 417, the 416. They barricaded the city so people couldn't get into the city, and that's when they attacked. Was the Friday morning.
So they isolated you first?
They isolated
did it
us.
very
They closed us
strategically.
in.
I didn't know.
They
No
moved-
one in America knows
They
this.
moved inch by inch, so they started to make. So the truckers agreed to move. They came to an agreement where they moved, and they got tricked.
They got tricked.
In my opinion.
As the truckers pulled out of where they were, they dropped a barricade.
Yeah, they dropped a
So
barricade.
nobody
they
could
kind
move
of
in.
trapped us in. So the truckers, they were spread out all over Ottawa, but now it was like they kind of they had moved them. They had to leave, and then there was just a small kind of area where,
We went from hundreds of thousands of truckers in Ottawa. I think the number I heard was 140,000 truckers in Ottawa, like trucks in Ottawa, to that weekend, I don't know, maybe I don't know, a couple thousand trucks maybe.
No,
maybe.
I wouldn't.
And they weren't all in the city. There was
they
only
made them
probably a few
disperse.
hundred trucks that were left on the hill.
So now they were all spread out, right? Like they made them move to certain areas. It was only where Parliament was, where everything was happening. There wasn't very many. No. And then that's when they moved in and started smashing all the windows of the cars that were parked on anybody who had a Canadian flag.
Smashing windows?
Yeah.
Yes, they would walk by, smash your window.
They had said, if you don't leave, we are going to tow you, and they didn't even give people an opportunity. A lot
to
of
leave. No.
Yeah, so we were
it
kind
was
of
just
trapped.
smash your window and now you're
and
done.
they would smash both sides of the windows or all four windows.
Four.
What was necessary about doing that to tow a car?
Exactly.
You know, so
and not only that, they couldn't get tow trucks in the city of Ottawa to help them move the trucks. They actually had to get tow trucks from Toronto, Sault Ste. Marie, Sarnia.
Nobody wanted to
These
do
are
it.
hours away from Ottawa. Sault Ste. Marie is like, I don't know, probably 12 hours away from Ottawa.
Because nobody would do it.
Because
They
they
didn't
knew
wanna
what
remove-
was going
yeah,
on in
they knew
Ottawa.
the
And they're like,
truth.
no. So they had to, they brought in, I think it was 7 tow companies from like Toronto and further away. So 3, 4, 6, 12 hours away. Those were the ones that came in and towed the trucks. And if they didn't get those tow trucks, they wouldn't have been able to do what they did.
No, they wouldn't have. No.
And then they brought in outside police forces, outside RCMP. They swore them in as Ottawa police so that they would now have jurisdiction in Ottawa to do what they did.
These guys this looked like something you'd see in a war-torn country. These guys were in green. There was a line of them, and then behind them, they had machine guns, gas masks,
Alrad machines on them. And they removed all of their badges and name tags. So you couldn't, there was no badge number,
there's no
anything.
you couldn't identify any of them. And
So they were nondescript police officers.
Yeah.
very intimidating.
The ones in the green were nondescript.
Were they from the federal government, or I mean, who were they?
Some said RCMP, some said Quebec on them, and then some said nothing. But the ones in the dark green, all green uniforms, and then the dark blue were RCMP, but they had removed all identification. There were Peel, Durham, York, police officers that were there, and they had even brought in paramedics and firefighters. That's what it said on their hats.
So they weren't the normal police that were sort of supportive.
The
of
Ottawa police they put on the outskirts.
No,
because they all made friends with us, and they knew.
Well, and
they wouldn't do what they wanted them to do.
No, they were really amazing, actually, and they were like, "This is the most peaceful protest we've ever been to."
Mm-hmm.
Like you would watch people walk past them and go, "Hey, thank you for your service, thank you guys, thank you for being here." It was really a slap in the face because we showed them so much love, so much love, more than I'm sure they've ever experienced, and this was probably the best time, best job.
It was the easiest job. They didn't have to do anything but stand there.
Right.
Because there was no crime. The crime went down, right? The crime went down. The homeless were being fed. The streets were being cleaned. They just stood around and listened to the music and occasionally did their walk from post to post. And that was that.
Yeah.
It was the easiest month they've ever had on their job. The mayor of Ottawa moved them out because they refused to do anything against us, knowing that we were peaceful. And according to the Police Services Act, they're only allowed to use 10% more force than what's being presented against them. And there was no force being presented against them. So they refused. So they brought in police from other communities.
And so is it only that they smashed windows, or did they do?
No, they smashed windows. They pulled people out of their vehicles through their windows. They kicked them. They beat them. They took butts of guns to them.
What?
They pushed me off a wall. They
My
shot rubber
friend
bullets.
who's a realtor, they beat her with a baton. She had bruising on her head. There are protesters, and they did this to our veterans. There was one veteran, his name is Chris Deering. If you want to go to YouTube, Brando on the Go, you can hear Chris Deering's story. Chris Deering served in Afghanistan. He was, in 2008, he was blown up. He was the only survivor, him out of 4 soldiers. He sustained spinal injuries from Afghanistan. Chris was one of the protesters that was there to fight for our freedoms, and the police beat him. They zip-tied him. They made him stand for 2 hours in minus 30-degree weather, and then they put him in the vehicle, back of the vehicle, and said, we're charging you with mischief, and Chris knows his stuff. He basically said, and he's really well-spoken, you really need to watch this, and he said, no, I've done nothing wrong. I'm protesting peacefully, right? And they drove him around for 45 minutes and then dropped him off on the side of the street, 45 minutes away from where Parliament was, where they picked him up in the protest, and they just left him on the side of the road.
And they did that with a lot of
Many people. They just drove them around and dropped them off in like some people hours away. It's almost like kidnapping.
Yeah.
Not even charging them. They're saying we're going to charge you. We've arrested you. They've zip tied all because they didn't have enough handcuffs, right?
Yeah.
So they zip tied them. These zip ties. We were pepper sprayed, beaten. There was tear gas used, rubber bullets. My dear friend from Not TV, Kyle, if you want to find him, he's on Facebook. He was shot with a rubber. Our Rebel News
reporter was shot.
Journalist was with tear gas.
Tear gassed and then
you
shot
see
with
her
rubber
video.
bullets.
She's screaming and crying. It's really hard to watch. An Indigenous woman, Mohawk Indigenous clan mother, was trampled by horses, and right before you see her being trampled, which I have the video as well, she's going, we're here in peace and love for our children. Like, we were screaming, I love you, as they were beating us, and I was singing Oh Canada and Amazing Grace. I was on my knees with my hands in the air, and I'm like, I'm a mom, and you're not. I'm like, I'm here for my kids. You're gonna have to do it. Like, I'm not getting up. I'm not
trying to
getting
remind
up.
them, you took an oath. The Police Services Act, Section 1, you took an oath to protect us. As they pushing us off walls and batoning us in the stomachs and pepper spraying us. And all we were doing was standing and complying with every demand that they issued at us. And then after they would move the line, they would stop, and then they would hold their line for an hour or two, and we would sing Oh Canada once they would stop, and people were praying, and then people would put on music and we would start to dance. Nobody retaliated, even after getting batons in the gut and pepper sprayed. Nobody retaliated. Nobody threw a fist. Nobody tried to grab a baton. Nothing. Absolutely
didn't even
nothing.
Throw anything. Did
the media report on any of this aspect of it?
There was nothing to report. They didn't report on the police brutality, but there was nothing they could use that was
against the protests.
Exactly,
right.
because there's nothing happened. So.
Were there UN police officers there?
Well, that's what we feel. That allegedly that some of the people in green, some people say they weren't speaking English, and I don't know for sure. I can't say for sure.
So you're not sure? Like, there could have been people hired, like a Blackwater thing, or
exactly.
they were.
Yes, correct. Yes, because the police that were there the entire time, I don't think would have ever done anything. And I had one video, and I said, officers, Justin Trudeau just invoked the Emergency Measures Act. Are you gonna enforce this? Are you gonna, basically come after the protest? Are you gonna arrest us, right? And I said, please look at me. And I said, just look at me. Are you going to enforce this? Look at me. And then one walks by, or said, are you going to stand with the people? That's what I said. I said, are you going to stand with the people? And I said, just look at me. I said, you don't even have to tell me. I said, just look at me. Are you going to stand with the people? And one looked at me, and then one looked back, and then another one looked at me. And I was like, wow. They didn't have to say it, but they were on our side. And those were the good guys.
Yeah.
They're not all bad. So that's,
gotcha.
It wasn't them. It was like 100.
They imported thousands. The number I heard was 5,000 imports were brought in. And when you watch different people's live streams of what went on, the Saturday on Bank Street, they brought in officers from this way down to Wellington and this way down Wellington and then this way at the top of bank, and then they enclosed us in at the bottom of bank.
Yeah.
And
They knew strategically what they were doing. They were like inching and closing us in, right?
but
So
they
we
were like
we
5,
were-
6, 7 lines of police officers deep on each side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you saw
There
the
were
tanks
so
come
many.
in, and then you saw the horses, and then you saw the big LRADs, and then you saw the ones come in with the masks,
The gas
gas
masks.
masks, and you knew it was going to get bad.
Yeah.
You just knew. There was a gentleman. I was standing at the front, and one of the green guys, and I think he was a good guy. As I was talking to him, I could see his eyes, and I think my words were getting through when I was saying, "Are you a dad? Do you understand what you're doing? You know, are your children going to be proud of you when you go home tonight? Are your parents going to be proud of
Yeah.
you when you go home tonight?" And I could see different words I was saying was registering. And then all of a sudden, there was like 5 or 6 line of police behind him, all in the green and the blue, and they just started yelling, "Move, move, move!" And so they started moving towards us, and there was a gentleman standing behind me, and he said, "Ma'am," and he was much taller, and I'm not very tall, I'm little. And he said, "Ma'am, I think you and I need to change spots because they're going to trample us." And I said, No, I'm going to be fine. And he goes, "Okay, well, I'm going to put my arm around your waist, and I'm just going to hold you so that when they trample, you're not going to get trampled." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you, sir." And then I went back to the police officer, again, reminding him of his oath and what have you. And then the lines behind him started yelling, "Faster, faster, faster!"
Yeah, they started like marching.
And
like,
then but the lines
But we were
behind the
just
front line started pushing on the front line police officers, and I saw the look of shock in the guy's eyes in front of me. He wasn't expecting that to happen, and he was now like arching his back, trying not to fall on me.
Right.
And we've got thousands of people behind us, so the back of our line doesn't know what's happening at the front of our line, so they're not moving as fast as these guys want us to. So now this guy, this big police officer in front of me, is arching his back, and you can see like the terror in his eyes. He knows I'm going to go down and they're going to trample on top of us. And then I see this hand from behind him reach over in black, and he's got a can in his hand, and I knew pepper spray. So I yelled, "Oh my God, he's going to pepper spray us!" And I threw my head down, and he ended up getting the 2 guys beside me, and the wind was blowing, and then I got the splash on my face, and then it very quickly went across the rest of my face, and I started yelling, "Oh my God, I'm blind, I've been hit." And the guy behind me who had my waist, he's like, "Okay, man, I got you, don't worry, I got you, I'm gonna dance you out of this line, just follow me, we're gonna dance you out." And he was incredible. He was just incredible.
I had a very similar story to yours, where, because like I said, I was on my knees, and I knew, like they were marching, and we were just like, hold the line, you know, like that was a lot of what was said, like hold the line, we're here for the kids, everybody remember the kids, it's all for the kids, you know, and I was on my knees, and this guy was like, "Please get up," you know, like, "Please get up, don't sit there." And I was like, "No," like,
Polite Canadians.
I know, and I feel so bad now because
the torment for that man.
His name was Jack. I found him later from releasing the video, and anyways, he hovered over top of me, and he must have seen the pepper spray. I didn't, but I was on the ground, like I'd already been like trampled, and you can hear a girl saying, "You're kicking her, you're kicking her," and then I got up. Someone helped me up. It was like, you know, obviously kind of chaotic, and I went around the corner behind a statue, and then I could taste it in my mouth. You know, the adrenaline's going, and I'm like, "Oh my God," so I'm spitting, and then I see this guy who was beside me the entire time, and he's like water, like doused in pepper spray, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I just kept saying, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry," and he's like, it's okay, and you know, because he was telling me like, "Get up, come on, don't be here, get up," like trying to help me, and just totally protected me when that happened.
So it was traumatic for even some of the police officers who were trying to protect you, or didn't.
I think for some of them it definitely was.
Oh,
for others,
sure.
they were
They didn't care.
excited.
People quit.
At
Officers
the
quit.
thought.
They resigned. Many of them after Ottawa.
Yeah, and some of the officers actually hugged some of the protesters,
Tell
and then
them
they
that
got
story.
tased.
Tell them the story of there was one moment, and this is on film, that protesters started hugging the police officer, and the police officer started allowing the hugs, and then his boss must have called him back from, like, because they were always in a line, right? Called him back, and he immediately just fainted.
He went down. He got tased.
Tased? Oh, I thought it was from.
No, his command put his arm around him, and then you just see the guy
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
drop.
His own.
And
Okay.
my understanding is that there was 5. I think it was 5 or 11. I can't remember the number, but somewhere between 5 and 11 of them that, you know, either fist pumped or was nice or hugged.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of them pulled out by their colleagues and put in handcuffs and taken away.
Wow.
So their colleagues are seeing this happening and
Mhm.
saw the one guy get tased by his captain or superior or whatever he
So
was.
then they're backing down because they're afraid.
They're afraid of
Yeah.
what's going to happen. Those who don't want to do this, but it's okay, do this or don't. The torment that they were feeling, and we kept saying, it just takes one of you. Just one of you.
Yeah.
Just
I
drop
put my
and
hand out,
join
and
our
I'd be like,
side.
just give me your hand. Come on.
Yeah.
It takes one of you. Once
Yeah.
one of you does it, because you could see in all of their eyes, the ones before the brutality,
Yeah.
you could see
Yeah.
in all of their.
The
they
normal
and
officer.
Then, and then sometimes they'd look at you, and you could just.
There were others that were standing ready. They were like, oh, I can't wait for the command,
Right.
and I'm going to go. And they're hitting
Gonna
their
get 'em.
baton on their hand. They're ready. And then you see other ones going,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
want to be here. I don't want to be
One guy was
here."
even like this, like literally, like
Yeah.
Oh.
like this, like he looked like a kid. He must have been like in his 20s. You could tell he was.
What's the climate now in Canada, and are the people like ratcheting back from this, or are they like saying, okay, we're gonna remember this and we're not gonna stop?
Honestly, it gave us so much hope, and despite that happening, what people are holding on to and what they remember is the unity, is the love. That on it, like Jody said, after the Friday when all this went down with the police, they set up a DJ and dance party, and all the protesters were there dancing. After
Yeah.
this had just happened during the day was horrific. You know, we know the cars were getting smashed, people were getting arrested, people were getting beaten, and what did we do?
We had a
We
dance
celebrated.
party.
You know, and what we
We
want.
had a dance party. We pulled out the hockey nets. We played hockey.
Mhm.
They shoveled, you know, barricades up and then used the hockey, my hockey nets, and I do Game On Canada, so I brought up all the hockey stuff. It's a kids initiative. Brought up the hockey stuff, and they shoveled snow barricades and put the hockey sticks in as flags and used the nets to help. But yeah, and then, you know, after Saturday happened, they took all the trucks out. They fenced. They put fences up everywhere so you couldn't even get to the hill. And what we did was we just moved the protest over to the Canadian War Museum and the Holocaust Museum, and we did the protest there. They did not chase us out every single day after
We did
the
a
Saturday.
march. We did
were
a
there.
march the following
The following
weekend.
weekend.
Everybody left, and people came back again. I drove
Wow.
another, because I drove 3 separate times. So, and I'm 5 hours from Ottawa, so 5 hours there, 5 hours back. I went up the first weekend, and then I left on the Tuesday, and then I went back on the Friday, and came back on the weekend, and then I never left.
Yeah.
I stayed for like 3 weeks, and then I went back after the brutality. We all went home. Everybody went home, but then I came
Well, I
back
stayed.
again.
I stayed. I stayed.
Yeah, you stayed. I think you
I
left
stayed
the day
at-
after.
I stayed
'cause
at
I
the
was
Barefoot.
you, with
No,
you.
I stayed at the Barefoot Hostel.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I stayed at the Barefoot Hostel for
Yeah.
another 3 or 4 days, and then we went to Bethan's, who was running the
Right.
stage. She was the MC on the stage the whole time in Ottawa.
Yeah.
I went to Bethan's and stayed at her house until the following Monday, and we protested every single day after. They thought they had chased us away. They didn't. We just went to the Canadian War Museum and we protested there every single day, and then we put together a million man march, and we had all these people line up. We walked back onto Wellington Street, and we did a human chain, and everybody hugged, and then they marched right from Ottawa over to Gatineau, and then back again, which is Quebec, the next province
Yeah, we
over.
actually walked from yeah, like
Did,
almost like
with
across the
two
street.
questions, was there any consequences for Trudeau for his behavior during the protest, and also did it make a difference in Canada in regards to like policy and things of that nature?
No,
He got roasted
consequences.
on the world stage.
Yes, yeah, he did. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
But-
but no consequences whatsoever. No apology from police.
Nothing.
No, I mean, very few politicians.
And they're still arresting people to this day, protesters. We just had one of our MPPs get arrested who was in support of the convoy and had spoken many times on the stage. He was just arrested yesterday
Yeah,
For what?
and now he's bailed
for supporting
for
us.
supporting us.
That's so
Mischief charges.
Yeah, mischief, and basically,
general.
yeah,
Yeah.
and also they are saying. Like his bail conditions are is he cannot speak against the vaccine mandates anymore. He can't speak against the vaccine or the masks anymore. He's not allowed to post anything on social media anymore because he was pretty vocal on social media
Yeah.
of his how he opposed and he also talked about how they manipulated the numbers, right? So as of March 11th in Ontario, on our government's website, so ontario.ca, it states that they are going to start changing how they report deaths to not include deaths that of people who died with COVID, but only people who died of COVID. So what they're saying, so they included, and this will decrease the number of deaths. So what they're basically saying is if you died in a car accident, but you tested positive for COVID, it wasn't COVID that killed you, it was a car accident. We're going to start removing those numbers because we included those in the data.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just March 11th. And so Randy Hilliard talked about this MPP that was arrested. He talked about how they, basically this is wrong information or information that they put forth, numbers of how many deaths, our hospitals are overwhelmed, people are dying with COVID, and half of those people, we're thinking about 50% of the numbers, 50% of the numbers are not actually people who died from the infection, but people who died and had,
Other causes.
yes, of completely other causes.
Someone who got shot and died, they said was a COVID death.
That they've been manipulating the data all along.
Yes.
Exactly.
And this you can read, this is not coming, this is not conspiracy, this is not propaganda.
It's on the
You can
government
read
website.
this on ontario.ca, and it says, so you're going to go to ontario.ca, living and managing with COVID-19, and you can click on the PDF, and that'll open how they are changing the data reporting as of March 11th, 2022. So prior to that, we have been completely manipulated.
Well, it's
It was just
interesting.
false
That's
information.
the same-
Yeah.
Correct.
same- CDC
So
about
yeah,
the
so
same time, it's the same thing.
nothing has
Yeah.
happened to
Exact thing.
Trudeau.
CDC did the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The CDC, yeah.
Yeah.
So we post a lot and we talk a lot about the CDC and the people that are responsible here for managing the data and the
The FDA,
pandemic.
the CDC, the WHO. Yeah.
Do you guys have any? Yeah.
Yeah, and how hard the U.S. government and your Canadian government are coming after the children, where there's 0.097, something like that, percent chance of them being affected.
Yes.
Statistically, 0%.
Zero,
chance.
yes, exactly.
Exactly.
And that's what that pediatric nurse was saying. We had a Hamilton McMaster nurse speak. You have to understand what is happening now, which is truly scary, is any doctor or nurse opposing the narrative is getting fired or written up. And
Wow.
you are allowed a maximum of 2 medical exemptions. And what is truly terrifying is we know, and I'm sure you guys know here in the States, that Pfizer just released their adverse effects documents. And what you just stated is so crucial because 0% of kids are really at risk of COVID-19, but how many
Have actually
are
died.
truly at risk with the vaccine?
Oh, yeah.
When this, why would you risk outweighs benefit? Why would you ever risk your child knowing that they will survive? Will survive this. Basically, guaranteed survive this. But now you have this massive 37-page document of myocarditis, pericarditis. Our Sick Kids Hospital, sickkids.ca, has listed now on their website myocarditis and pericarditis is an adverse reaction to these vaccines.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, like, that's where people need to be like, we've been misinformed, we've been lied to, we need to accept it, because if we don't accept it, we won't change it, and that's our fight, right? We want this.
Well, we want accountability of our government. We want accountability for what happened in Ottawa.